Welcome, dear friends. I hope this week has brought you moments of warmth, unexpected joy, and reminders of just how deeply loved you are. Life has a way of moving so quickly, doesn't it? We race through the days trying to catch up, only to find ourselves slowed down by little disruptions. Maybe this morning you hit snooze one too many times, spilled your coffee, or missed that green light. On the surface, these moments seem frustrating. But what if, just what if, God was working through them? What if that small, inconvenient delay was actually God's way of shielding you from something you couldn't see? You see, divine protection doesn't always look miraculous at first glance. Sometimes it's hidden in the ordinary moments that we take for granted. Think about those moments in life that don't make sense. The missed opportunity, the closed door, the unexpected detour. They can leave us feeling confused, even abandoned. But what if those moments are part of God's greater plan? What if He's keeping you from stepping into harm's way or redirecting you toward something far better? You see, God operates in ways beyond our understanding. He doesn't just protect us from the dangers we can see, He shields us from the dangers we never knew existed. And when we look back, we often realize that His unseen hand was guiding us all along. Take the story of Elisha and his servant in 2 Kings chapter 6. The king of Aram had sent an army to capture Elisha. One morning, Elisha's servant woke up to see the city surrounded by horses and chariots. Imagine the fear that gripped his heart. He ran to Elisha and cried out, "Oh no, my lord, what shall we do?" But Elisha, calm and unshaken, replied, "Don't be afraid. Those who are with us are more than those who are with them." Then Elisha prayed, asking God to open the servant's eyes, and in that moment the servant saw the hills filled with horses and chariots of fire, God's heavenly army surrounding them. 2 Kings chapter 6 verses 15 to 17 says, what an incredible revelation. The servant's fear melted away as he realized God had been protecting them all along. He just couldn't see it until his eyes were opened. Imagine the shift in perspective. One moment overwhelmed by fear, and the next filled with awe and confidence in God's protection. How often do we live in the fear of what surrounds us, forgetting that the God of angel armies stands by our side? God's protection is not always visible to our human eyes, but that doesn't make it any less real. It reminds us to look beyond what we can see and trust in the unseen power of God, working on our behalf. Sometimes, like Elisha's servant, we need our eyes to be opened through prayer, through faith, or through reflection. We need to ask God to help us see beyond the immediate challenges so we can recognize His presence surrounding us. Fear may grip our hearts momentarily, but when we see God's protection, fear has no choice but to retreat. The same God who filled the hills with heavenly chariots of fire is the same God who surrounds you today, ready to defend, protect, and sustain you. How many times have we been like Elisha's servant? We see the trouble before us, but we miss the heavenly protection surrounding us. Maybe it's the job you didn't get, the relationship that ended, or the opportunity that slipped it through your fingers. It feels like loss, but what if it's God's protection? Sometimes God shuts a door because He knows the danger that lies ahead. He reroutes us not to punish us, but to protect us and lead us to something greater. Trusting God's unseen work requires faith. It requires believing that He sees what we cannot. Think about this for a moment. What if the very thing you're lamenting over right now is actually God redirecting you toward His divine purpose? Picture a child reaching out to touch a flame. They don't understand the danger, but a loving parent pulls their hand away. The child might cry in frustration, feeling denied something they desire, but the parent's actions stem from a deeper knowledge and care. In the same way, God protects us from things we may desperately want, not because He's withholding good, but because He knows what will harm us in ways we can't comprehend. Often the protection doesn't feel like a shield at all. It can feel like rejection, disappointment, or failure. But it's in these moments that we must lean into God's promises. When we trust Him, we allow His greater plan to unfold. His timing, though mysterious, is always perfect. Let me share a story about a modern-day example of God's unseen protection. If you've ever heard of Jeremy Camp, the Christian singer and songwriter, you'll know his life has been a testament to God's faithfulness, even in pain. Early in his life, Jeremy faced the heartbreak of losing his first wife, Melissa, to cancer. They were young and newly married, and he prayed with all his heart for her healing, but Melissa passed away. Jeremy could have turned bitter or walked away from his faith, but through his pain, he discovered a deeper understanding of God's purpose and protection. Jeremy later shared that Melissa told him before she died, "If one person's life is changed by what I go through, it will all be worth it." And through that heartbreaking season, Jeremy wrote songs that touched millions of lives, bringing hope to people in their darkest moment. God protected Jeremy not from the pain, but through the pain. And He used that experience to give Jeremy a voice that would impact the world in ways he never imagined. This reminds us that sometimes God's protection doesn't look the way we expect it to. We want to be shielded from all pain, all discomfort, all difficulty, but God's protection is often about shaping us, refining us, and preparing us for the greater purpose He has planned. It doesn't mean the absence of struggle. It means that through every struggle, He is with us, holding us, and using even the hardest moments for our good. Think about the story of Rahab in the Bible. She lived in Jericho, a city destined to fall. When Joshua sent spies to scout out the land, Rahab risked everything to hide them. In return for her courage and faith, the spies promised to protect her and her family when the city was destroyed. Now imagine being Rahab. She was surrounded by danger. Her city was about to face destruction, and she had no guarantee that these strangers would keep their word. But Rahab chose to trust in God's unseen protection. And when Jericho fell, Rahab and her family were saved because of her faith and obedience. Joshua chapter 6, verse 25 says, "What does this teach us?" Rahab's faith led her to trust in God's protection, even when it didn't make sense. She couldn't see the outcome, but she believed in the God who could. And not only was Rahab saved, but she became part of God's larger story, an ancestor of Jesus Christ Himself. Her trust in God's unseen hand turned a hopeless situation into a legacy of faith and redemption. God's protection often works in ways we can't see until we look back. Have you ever had a moment when you realized God saved you from something without you even knowing it? Maybe you avoided an accident because you were running late, or you didn't take a job that later turned out to be a toxic environment. These are not coincidences. They are evidence of God's loving protection. I remember hearing a story about a man who missed his train to work. He was frustrated, feeling like his whole day was ruined. But later he learned that the very train he missed had been involved in a tragic accident. In that moment, what felt like an inconvenience turned out to be divine protection. God had shielded him from danger without him even realizing it. These moments serve as powerful reminders of God's providence. They highlight how His hand is always working in the background, orchestrating events in ways we can't fully comprehend. Think about this. The frustration you feel in the present could be a reflection of God's mercy in action. Sometimes the closed door isn't rejection, it's a redirection. The detour isn't pointless, it's purposeful. God sees the entire picture, every outcome, every possibility, and He positions us exactly where we need to be to avoid unseen dangers or to fulfill His greater plan for our lives. When we truly grasp this, it changes how we view delays and disappointments. Instead of seeing them as setbacks, we can begin to see them as setups for something better. And in hindsight, those moments of inconvenience often transform into moments of gratitude, where we can say, "Lord, thank you for what you kept me from, even when I didn't know I needed it." It's easy to become frustrated when life doesn't go according to plan. But Proverbs chapter 3, verses 5 to 6 reminds us to trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways, submit to Him, and He will make your paths straight. Trusting God means letting go of our need to understand everything. It means believing that He is working for our good, even when we can't see it. So how do we respond when life doesn't make sense? First, we choose to trust. Trust that God is who He says He is and that His plans for you are good. Second, we pray for God's protection daily. Prayer is not just about asking for what we want. It's about aligning our hearts with God's will and inviting His hand of protection over our lives. Finally, we look back and thank God for the times He protected us, even when we didn't know it. Gratitude has a way of shifting our perspective and reminding us of God's faithfulness. One of my favorite quotes comes from Charles Spurgeon, who said, "God is too good to be unkind, and He is too wise to be mistaken. And when we cannot trace His hand, we must trust His heart." Isn't that powerful? When we can't see what God is doing, we can trust that His heart is always for us. He loves us more than we could ever comprehend, and His protection surrounds us like a shield. Maybe right now, you're in a season where you don't understand what's happening. The doors are closing, the road feels uncertain, and you're tempted to doubt God's goodness. But I want to encourage you, God is protecting you. He is working behind the scenes, arranging things for your good and His glory. What feels like a setback today might just be the very thing that saves you tomorrow. Trust Him, even when you can't see the whole picture. As we close, let's hold on to the words of Psalm chapter 91, verses 11 to 12. "For He will command His angels concerning you, to guard you in all your ways. They will lift you up in their hands, so that you will not strike your foot against a stone." Friends, God's protection is real. He is watching over you, shielding you, and guiding you every step of the way. Even when you don't see it, even when you don't feel it, His hand is at work. So trust Him, rest in His love, and know that you are never alone. If this message encouraged you, don't forget to like this video, share it with others, and subscribe to the channel. Let's spread hope and inspiration together. Thank you for joining me today, and I'll see you in the next video. God bless.